I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today, we have something a little different, a husband and wife who have built serious careers in revenue, go-to-market, and operations, and who are doing it at the same time in the same household. Ned Arick is the VP of Operations for the advisory practice at acquisition.com. He's been revenue hire #1 at multiple companies, helped scale Beam Solar to an 8-figure exit in 18 months, and drove growth through 2 acquisitions. A data-obsessed operator, Ned believes hiring more reps is rarely the real solution. And his wife, Jamie, is the director of revenue, where she helps companies build partner ecosystems that create predictable pipeline. After nearly a decade in SaaS, go-to-market, e-commerce, and startup revenue leadership, she became convinced that partner-sourced deals close faster, win more often, and cost far less than cold outbound. Her track record includes scaling a startup from $0 to $750,000 in under a year and driving $1.4 million in revenue growth. Ned and Jamie, welcome to the show.
Welcome everyone back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Gabe and Lexi and our friends, Ned and Jamie. Guys, we just heard your bio. We're so excited to have you both here. I like doing, a power couple podcast is what I'm calling this one here, because you guys are a true power couple here. And you're not together now, you're across the country and we're all in different cities right now, me, Lexi included, but excited to have this conversation. How you guys been doing?
Great. Busy.
Great.
Awesome. Well, we just heard your bio. It's pretty impressive how you guys are driving revenue from multiple companies at multiple times. And you guys, that's why I call you guys the power couple. But let's get into the origin story, because we want to know, and our audience wants to know, where did this start? Because most people don't go to college to get degrees in revenue production. And so where did this start for you? Because you guys are both deep into it. You're both deep in go-to-market, but you got there differently. Ned, you were talking about earlier that your first revenue hire was at multiple companies and you're scaling from 0 to exit. And Jamie, you nearly built a decade across SaaS and e-commerce. So take us through that and how you guys got into this industry and where that started for you. And I'll do ladies first, of course.
So it's actually really funny. I've been in sales my entire career. Up until I got into SaaS, though, I was in hospitality. So that's kind of like where I really got my start in sales. It's a lot more traditional. It's a lot more relationship building and a lot of luncheons you have to attend and stuff like that. So I very randomly, and this was back in the Craigslist days, so I just need to caveat that this was over 10 years ago now. I was just kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I found an ad for at the time it was like an account manager, which is now like customer success, for a small startup in Neptune Beach, Florida, which was right around the corner from where I lived. I thought it was cool. I had one conversation with the managing director there, Travis Merrier, and he gave me the address to the place to show up for the interview. I'm like, awesome. I pull up, I park, and I realize it is this house at the beach. The office is
Place is
sketchy.
sketchy. Still sketchy to this day.
Yeah.
Share your location.
Screaming,
Jeez.
okay, this was an ad on Craigslist. He sent you this address to this house. So I get in there, I meet Travis, and he's like, you want to meet the team upstairs in the attic? I'm like,
It's a legitimate attic.
I should do this or not. Lo and behold, there was a whole team of devs and sales folks upstairs in the attic. Thank God. And yeah, just had a quick, just a small taste of startup life where you kind of work from wherever, and everybody, I mean, we were literally a block from the beach. So the guys would grab their boards and go like surfing midday. And I was just like, this is really like where I want to be. And so that's really where I got my start in SaaS in general and e-commerce through that experience with Inventory Source. And then from there, we had kind of built out, sort of spun up a sister company from that was a little bit more enterprise. But yeah, that was like my start in like true SaaS versus just like regular, like traditional sales. And so that is, I'll let Ned kind of explain where he came from, but that was really our first like conversations when we first met, was just sort of our experiences in what I call the trough of sorrow, which if you're familiar with SaaS, you understand what that's like. Just kind of the experiences and like going to battle every day for your startup. So that's where we really connected, I think.
Yeah. And fun fact, I didn't actually know what the trough of sorrow was. So she had to explain it to me because I've just had an up and to the right career. Just kidding. But yeah, no, I got my start in Silicon Valley. So I got my start at an early stage startup. We were selling mobile apps to gyms. And I was first revenue hire there. And it was just a super, super fun experience. I learned a ton. That was also where I had my first exit. And so right place, right time, right people. And then went into consulting and venture capital after that, and spent a couple of years there where I learned probably 10 years of experience in 2.5 years. And that's actually when I met Jamie, when I was in the middle of that. And then for some reason, I thought I was cool enough to go start a home services company. So started an HVAC company in Greensboro, North Carolina. Jamie barely knew me, and I was like, hey, you want to move to Greensboro, North Carolina? And we were living in Atlantic Beach, Florida at the time, in a dope beach house. And I was like, hey, it would be cool if we left the beach altogether and went and made no money. How's that sound? And she was just like ride or die as hell. And we packed up did we pack up a U-Haul? Or no, we packed up a U-Haul because we had to go put stuff in storage. But then we drove up to a furnished apartment in Greensboro, North Carolina. And just about 18 months later, so we had built to eight figures in 18 months, got sold a minority share of that to private equity, stayed on as the chief revenue officer. And then July of last year, we had a substantial exit. And now here I am at acquisition.com as the vice president of operations, running the advisory practice.
I love those stories. Really awesome, and really excited to jump into this. And Ned, you've described yourself as someone who thrives on adrenaline and building from the ground up. What does building from the ground up actually look like on day one for you?
Yeah, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Tears mainly, because I'm a knowledge worker. And so I will tell you, I think building from the ground up, one of the biggest things that I look at is you are in everything all the time. You know what's happening at every level of the business, and let's be real, there aren't many levels when you first start. And so I mean, just even at my first company, I was selling, I was marketing, I was customer success. We were just trying to figure the thing out and building product. I was managing product builds, and I'm not a product manager by any stretch of the imagination. And obviously, starting the home services company, I mean, we were driving out to the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, hoping that Mary would qualify her credit so we could put an HVAC. And, going out to these HVAC installs, and I've never lifted a hammer a day in my life. And, just trying to figure out how the hell we're going to do this thing, build this thing, two guys and a couple of Lululemon shirts trying to pretend like we're hardcore and can build a home services company. So I think it really is. It's being in the weeds on everything just so that and you can learn every piece of the business. Because I think one of the big things that I see people miss a lot of the times is that they hire too quickly, and they hire before they actually understand the entirety of the business. Like, as a founder, you have to know how to market, you have to know how to sell the product, you have to know the voice of the customer and the customer success side of things and the fulfillment piece, so that when you are bringing someone else on, you at least have the skeleton of what it's supposed to look like, and then they can put meat on the bones. But you can't manage a process, you can't manage people unless you've actually done the process.
And you really learned that really in your first role as a founding revenue leader, right? When you first started, is to wear all those hats. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Jamie, by the way, you know that they say in the book Think and Grow Rich, you got to burn the boats to success. I mean, you guys did that. You just burned the beast a little bit and moved away. But unbelievable to see the exit happen. So congratulations to you. I know we're going to dive more into that later. Jamie, here's my question, because you've done this also in your career, right? You started off in full cycle sales, and most operations and go to market, and still to this day, are just doing outbound or paid ads and running SDR teams. But you've moved it into partnerships, and really that's an undervalued channel right now. But I see more and more companies getting on board. We started really doubling down our company with actually on our partnership program, and Lexi leads that, ironically. But it's been unbelievable, and now 40% of our revenue is coming from partnerships. So walk us through why you saw and how you saw partnerships really being an under-engineered platform for go-to-market, and where you
Yeah, I think for lack of a better term, partnerships historically is treated as kind of the stepchild, the redheaded stepchild of any sales org. And I think that that's really because oftentimes, especially in sales, things are moving quickly, right? And the last thing that a revenue leader wants to hear is like, okay, well, that's going to take time, you know? And so we look at time in months and in quarters. And if you're telling me that, hey, I've got this great strategy, but it's not really going to do anything for us for probably 18 months to 2 years, I'm probably going to be less excited about that than I am, spending money on paid ads, right? Where it's like, I know I'm going to immediately get leads in the door. However, partnerships, I think it's severely underrated because of just what we've seen in the market, especially today, in terms of outreach and outbound. It's very, as we all know, AI driven, and I'm certainly not villainizing AI at all, but it's really hard for, I think, buyers and consumers now to really distinguish between, what is AI outreach and who's an actual human, and who do I actually need to dedicate my time and attention to, what services and products are actually going to solve these problems that I have. And because AI is making outbound so easy and so accessible for everyone, it's just creating a lot of noise in the marketplace. So I say all that to say partnerships are really that channel to kind of look to, because as that noise is getting greater, consumers are looking towards their network to really validate and vet certain services, their vendors, even people that their clients, right? Even people that want to pay them. It's like, hey, I know my network, I know the people in my network, and I'm much more willing to meet with a vendor that I know my partners in my ecosystem have great things to say about. And we see it in the numbers too. Partner-led deals, they have shorter sales cycles. Typically the revenue is a bit higher in terms of the average contract value, and they're stickier. Lifetime value we see especially is a lot longer from those partner source deals versus just traditional go-to-market, however you are traditionally sourcing those deals. So very long-winded way to say, I think that the stigma around partnerships in the past has been that it just takes too long. And the issue with that is because there's not really a dedicated person focusing on partnerships. It really is kind of a full-time job. It's a full-time position if you really want to leverage partnerships in a meaningful way. So I think people are starting to get wise to that, and they're starting to realize that and understand that, just as the landscape of AI is just changing things so dramatically. I think you're going to start seeing partnerships incorporated more into more and more sales organizations.
So
Yep.
well said.
Totally agree with you. And I see it the same way here doing partnerships. And Ned, going back to the Beam Solar exit, what were some of the decisions that actually moved the needle?
Partnerships. No, I'm kidding. But I think one of the biggest is, I will tell you, this is actually a very funny story. So this is probably 6 or 8 months into the business, and we had grown really, really fast. And you know, I was running marketing, I was running sales, running the fulfillment side of the business, and we just could not figure out why we were not closing deals Mondays and Tuesdays. Like, it was just like Wednesdays through Sundays, we were just crushing. And I'm literally at our house in Greensboro, North Carolina, right off Fernwood Street in Irving Park. And I'm like banging my head against the kitchen counter. And I'm like, I have no idea what the hell's going on. And Jamie looked at me and she goes, "Get the SDRs to call on Saturdays. You're an idiot." And I think I will tell you that right there, we had about a double in revenue just because the calendars were full on Mondays and Tuesdays because we just had guys start calling on Saturdays. And so I think that was really, as small as that sounds, it was one of like the biggest decisions that we made. But the other thing that I will say, just from the piece of the strategic element, is so I built Beam, and my partners and I built Beam like a software company. So I didn't know how to build an HVAC company. I'm an idiot, but I knew how to build software companies. I'd done it in the past. I'd worked with over 300 in my consulting days. I knew what it looked like to build a marketing, sales, and customer success org from the ground up and make it successful. And so from day one, one of the biggest things that we did was we focused on the client experience, the homeowner experience, and we had a customer success team and not a customer support team. And I think my ignorance in how to actually build an HVAC company was actually one of our biggest strengths, because we had SDRs. So we had, the minute that a lead came in, they called them within 60 seconds, right? And speed to lead matters. We had guys that only focused on going into the homes and getting very, very good at selling those deals. And then we had a team that as soon as someone closed the deal in the house, got a call, and they were the person that, until that HVAC was installed, they were their point of contact. And they were calling them with updates. They were updating them with everything that we did. And so I think one of the biggest decisions that we made was, in that time, I actually deleted all social media. Like, I was a ghost. And the reason was because I didn't want outside noise. I just wanted to go, okay, cool. I have my network of individuals. I have the people that I go to when I have questions that I trust. And I don't want to hop on LinkedIn and hear someone say, "Oh, you should try this sales process." And for me, especially in the early stages of a business, when you're just trying a bunch of shit and hoping that sorry, can I cuss on this? My bad.
Yeah.
Cool. A bunch of shit. And, you're just throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and you're hoping something sticks. It's very easy for you to be able to just go like, "Hey, we'll try this sales process today." And, "Oh, that didn't work, so we'll try this tomorrow." And so us building it as a software company, in the sense of how we actually built the organization, was the reason, number one, that we stood out to investors, which is great. But it was also the reason that we were able to grow as fast as we did, because we weren't just a bunch of HVAC technicians that decided that we wanted a bigger truck and a boat, and so we were going to go start our own company. We were a bunch of guys that had no experience in the industry whatsoever, and just were like, what's the worst thing that happens? We go back to making money in consulting and whatever the other guys were doing. Like, cool, let's go have some fun.
That's incredible. Wow. So Jamie, you had that idea. which is absolutely awesome. Adding SDRs, it's music to our ears because we're in the SDR business. So that's great to hear that. But you guys have both said that, let's talk about when things aren't going well, right? This is do hard things. So there's companies that have struggled. There's programs that have not, grown. Like you were just talking that you weren't doing anything on Mondays and Tuesdays. We had to fix that. So when those targets aren't getting hit, and this is a question for both of you, and targets are struggling, you said that it's not always the right move to hire, right? It's not always about adding people or adding reps or adding bodies to the problem. And it's really counterintuitive to what most founders and boards are saying and thinking these days. So what are those things that you're asking yourselves before you even considering adding headcount? And you guys
I've got
can take that.
something for that. And I think it's, Ned, I know that we've talked about this before too, but I think it's the minute you get away from just really nailing the basics, right? And I think everyone in like your professional career at some point you have this moment where you're like, hey, when I was, really crushing, I was absolutely checking, everything off the list in terms of, how am I prospecting? How am I running my discovery calls? What am I saying in my demos? And I think what happens in sales specifically is that I think people tend to get a little bit further away from that, right? Just as time goes on, you've got more thrown on your plate. You kind of let certain things fall to the wayside. And then you kind of look up one day and you're like, okay, well, why is my pipeline not as full? Or why am I not closing deals as quickly as I was, in the past? And if you really just kind of start looking at your just day-to-day behavior, right? And you really start looking at, what is the conversations that you're having on those discovery calls, those demos. The thing that I've noticed is that it's like, okay, when I'm in those moments, it's okay. I've noticed that I've gotten away from just the basics, right? Or I'm trying to like overcomplicate this, or I'm trying to like add an extra step in here for whatever reason, right? And so my first piece of advice and sort of my first thought is always to just like, hey, look at what we're doing today. Are we doing it in a way that's effective, just with the manpower and the bandwidth that we have today? And are we just making things more complex for the sake of complexity? And so for me, it's like, when I've had those moments, we go back to really, again, the basics. That's when you kind of get right back on track and you're like, okay, maybe I do have more bandwidth. Maybe I don't need as much help with this. I just need to stay focused.
Yeah, and I would add to that because I think the basics, people just try to get cute, right? It's plain and simple. And the way that I think about this is anytime that a company comes to me and they're like, oh, I've got a people problem, this person sucks, the first place that I go to is the process. Because a lot of times when we're thinking that, hey, we have low bandwidth or we're not getting the results from the people, it's 99% of the time a process issue. And so the first thing that I say is, because I always tell my team this is my job is to put you in the best possible position to be successful. And that is literally all I care about. And a lot of times that is building systems, it's building process. Layla here at ACQ always says memory is a liability. And if you are having to remember to do something, you will forget. There are too many things on your plate as a human being. And so we as leaders have to make sure that people have everything in place so they don't have to sit there and remember to do a thing. And so whenever I'm sitting there and saying, hey, we're not being successful right now, we go back to the basis, we go back to the fundamentals, but we go back to the process as a whole. And what were we doing when things were successful? Now, the other question becomes, what if we're doing something and it's never been successful, right? And we haven't been able to try something. The biggest thing that I always say is I get into the weeds. And I think a lot of founders and CEOs are afraid to go founder mode again. I think especially as you get bigger, the closer you get to the problem and the more narrow that you make the problem, the easier it is to solve. Simpler it is to solve, right? Because when you are sitting there and saying, here is the constraint of the business right now, like, we need more leads. Okay, well, getting more leads is actually a very broad term. Where are we going to get the leads? What is the source? What is the channel? How are we going to go get the leads, right? Who are we getting the leads? Like, who is coming in, right? And each of those has their own independent process and own independent system that needs to be built around that. And so if I see something not working, I'm getting into the weeds. I am going to go listen to the calls. I'm going to go sit next to the SDRs and I'm going to go listen to the calls that they're having. And I'm going to go listen and see what they're saying. I'm going to go into the marketing conversations and I'm going to be in there hearing what they're saying. I'm going to sit with customer success and hear everything. And so I think a lot of times founders and people are afraid to get back into the weeds, get your hands dirty. And so anytime an issue happens in the business, my first thought is not like, how do I direct these people to do things better? My thought is, how do I go and spend the next 30 days in the weeds with them? And how do I shrink the problem into a very narrow, specific piece that is the highest impact lever we can pull that gives us an asymmetrical return if we actually fix this thing?
Yeah, this is awesome, guys. You guys rock. Before we get into building together, which I'm excited to transition in a moment, we talked about the 3 pillars of any business, which people, process, technology. So I got to ask the technology question. Jamie, you alluded to it with AI and all the outreach that's happening. AI became exciting, right? Then it became slock. And people have very controversial opinions on what we should be doing right now in the AI space with sales and go to market specific. I guess my general question is, what's your take on it right now, where we live in 2026, and where do you think it should be and should not be when it comes to using it and go to market?
Yeah,
Jamie?
I'm pro AI through and through. I certainly am not a tinfoil hat wearing the robots are going to take over kind of person. I think the more I've used it in my career, the more that I realize that it really can help. Going back to what we talked about, staying focused, right? It's just just an excellent tool for me personally, just to help with efficiency. And my tendency to have ADHD moments where I've got a million things going on. So I think it's incredible. I think the solutions that I've seen, just even just on LinkedIn, when I have like company suggestions pop up, and just the solutions that have really kind of come from developers' ability to kind of like really harness AI and use it for good. I'm all about it. So I'm very much a fan. I beg of some folks to please just, Canva still exists. It is still available in the world. And I see just like ad images, copies, things like that that you can tell have been generated with AI, and it just doesn't do it for me. So I have my opinions on that in terms of Claude Design's awesome, love that, but for the most part, I think maybe I'm too much of a control freak, so I like Canva because I can just fix what I want to fix and then move on with my day. But yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously it's not going anywhere. We're going to see more and more of it. I think in the when it comes to sales and marketing, I think it's really exciting. I've been kind of looking into like AEO and digging into that a little bit too lately. And the possibilities really are kind of endless. And I think it's nuts. I think like some folks already are using AI, to shop, which is really cool. And so I think whatever we can do from, our standpoint to really help with that. And then whatever we can do as consumers, even like, again, in my personal life, to just make my life easier. I'm all about it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's be real. Like, AI isn't going anywhere. Like, so I will tell you, like, the people that are online right now that are like, oh, you need to be more human, forget AI. Like, sorry, like that, you're wrong. Like, I mean, sure, we all have to be more human, and great. Like, that's cool. But we've all been humans for as long as we've been alive. So guess what? AI's here. So great that you're going to have networking events, and great that you're going to do those things, but AI is here, and it's going to, this is the worst it will ever be. Like, let's just be honest with that. One thing that I will say around like specifically the usage of AI, especially in the enterprise world, is if we look at AI right now, AI is really an enterprise phenomenon, right? It is very much like very few consumer AI products, right? OpenAI, sure, but now most of their time is going over to Codex. Sure, you've got Google, but they're still really focused on search, right? They're not going super deep in that, but it's mainly an enterprise tool that we are all using, right? And one thing that I will say is, I'm very AI first. When I have a problem, I first go and I say, could AI solve this? Right? Could it do it 80% as well as someone else could do it? And maybe that's me just because I own a P&L. That might be the reason. But AI is really just workflows. And I think that's the biggest thing that I will just tell anyone here is that if you can't explain down to the minute detail what you do on a day in and day out basis, you cannot use AI effectively. And so it's just like the same thing as like, if I were to ask each of you guys, tell me exactly how to tie your shoes step by step, we'd probably have a problem with it, right? And it's the same thing there. It's like we have to be able to say, take the two laces, put them together, right? Bunny loop. And then, but that's how you have to train the AI. And if you can't train a human, you can't train AI. And so the reason that you see all this slop out there is that people aren't using AI the way that it is meant to be used, right? AI is not there. It doesn't know what you know right now. You have to give it what you know, but you can't just give it what you know in the sense of like, here's what I do on a day-to-day basis. It's step by step by step by step. And so you have to give it your voice, but guess what? You can't just say, hey, I want this tonality. You have to actually give it like, hey, this is what my writing looks like. Here are videos of me talking. Here's all of this. Here's like, especially, Jamie talked about design. The way that you make Claude design as good as Canva is you upload what good design looks like. You upload your brand guide. And so that's one of the biggest things I would say is people that say like AI sucks or, I'm getting AI slop. It's because the person on the other end of that AI actually probably couldn't even train a human to do the things they do. So they're going to they probably have slop humans that work for them anyway, because they don't know how to do it. They have slop process. And so that's the biggest thing is like, I would really recommend the people that are online sitting there and saying that like human first, like log in and start utilizing AI because you will be left behind.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
So, Jamie, you mentioned just a little bit ago about you guys having talked about the hiring topic before, and you both operate at such a high level. Do you guys talk shop at home? Is it common, or do you guys keep work and
No,
home
we
life separate?
very much, it is very much part of our lives. Just work is life, and I think that people have very strong opinions about that, right? There's always talk about balance. Ned and I don't think have ever really been good at really truly understanding what balance is. I think he and I both are very much, when we're passionate about something or we're determined to do something, we put all of our eggs in that basket. I mean, a good example is us selling everything we owned and moving up to Greensboro, which I think we forgot to mention was also we were like trying to beat a hurricane that was coming to
Oh yeah, I forgot.
by like a very specific date. Otherwise, we weren't going to be able to leave. But all of that to say, I think that it's definitely something that like we just can't separate. Especially Ned much more than me. No offense, Neddy, I have a hobby. Ned's hobby is so but it's very much there are certainly times where it's like, okay, like you kind of have exhausted all topics of conversation in terms of, what did you do today and what are you guys working on and what do you have on your calendar next or tomorrow or whatever. So there kind of is like a moment there where we are able to turn it off, but I don't think either. I think both of us are really excited to always share with with each other essentially what we're working on, and we always like to get ideas from each other. I would be probably not the world's smartest human if I had someone like Ned literally available to me at all times and just never asked him for help or never asked for his advice or what he would do in certain scenarios. So yeah, we are we're very open about that. It's usually when we're walking the dog.
Yep. Yeah. We're not a balanced family whatsoever. Like, um, I mean, Jamie's heard me say this 1,000 times. Everything that we do, we try to become the best in the world at, period. Like the end, hard stop. Like I don't care. Like I don't care if and that this is probably why I don't have hobbies, because I am too competitive, and like if I started pickleball, I would have to go pro in pickleball or I would be a failure. And so I think one of the biggest things for us, and and like Jamie said, yeah, sure, there are nights that we both had long days and we'll be in the middle of talking about work and asking questions about this strategy and this tactic, and hey, we should try this tomorrow or next day. And then I'm like, bro, we should just watch something dumb on TV. But I mean, I will say that I am obsessive. Like I am very much someone who, if you put something in front of me, I will obsess over it until I am the best in the world at it. And that isn't something that comes with balance. And, I think balance is something that I always have found interesting. I feel like I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, if you love your work, you'll never work a day in your life. Bullshit. Yes, you will. I work a ton and I love what I do. And like it is work, absolutely, but I absolutely love work that I do. One thing that I've, really struggled with is being able to turn off a lot. And I think Jamie's helped me a lot with that. Um, sometimes I can't. But I think that if you really truly want to be the best in the world at the thing that you do, and some people don't, right? And some people are cool. Like, hey, I work a 9 to 5 and I coach my kids' soccer teams and I don't work on weekends. And that's cool. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just not for me. Like I want to work 7 days a week and I want to be able to tell Jamie about all these amazing things that I do. And quite honestly, I am very financially driven. And I want to give my family the life that they deserve, and I want to make sure that for generations to come, that my last name is me. I'm the reason that for generations to come that they don't have to do anything. Like my daughter and my stepson, like, dude, if they don't want to work, I want to make sure that they don't have to, and I'm cool with that. Like I'm not that guy that's like, I'm not giving my kids money. No, they're getting money, and they're going to, maybe I'll like slow roll it. I'll figure that one out, but depends on how they act as they grow up. But yeah, I mean, I'm very much financially driven. I like things. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I don't like nice things either. Like, no, I make money to have great experiences and buy great things, and that just doesn't come with balance.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So I resonate with you both so much on that topic. So here's my question, because this is what I struggle with, and I want to ask how you guys deal with it. Is the people around you, how do you get them to catch up to how fast you're running, right?
You don't.
Because exactly. So where do you, how are you attracting those types of people into your ecosystem to drive businesses, to delegate, to build those systems, to leverage your time so you can have more freedom to go out and produce more, and not, have confrontation with them when they're not catching up to you. What's your position on that? And you guys just take it out of you like.
I was going to say,
Jamie, you
Ned
can
has
start.
something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you this is I'm not one of those people that is like, hey, if someone's not on the same journey as you, you cut them out of your life. Like I don't cut my family out of my life. I don't cut my friends that decided to, be construction workers instead of going into software out of my life. Like, I'm still friends. But what I will say is that I don't allow people into my life that aren't on the same journey, new people into my life that aren't on the same journey or aren't ahead of me in an aspect of my life that I'm looking to get better at. And so, I mean, what I will say is that, not to get too woo woo about it, but I mean, you attract what you are. And so, I mean, the circles that you're in, I mean, that matters. And so, I will say that there are, Jamie knows this. I have a 72-hour rule when I go back home. Right. I'm there for 72 hours and then we're out. Right. And 72 hours is long. And the reason is because I need to go back and get fed again. And when you start to feel like you're being drained I think there is a lot to be said around like if I start to feel like someone is draining me, if I start to feel like a group of people are draining me, if I feel like I'm not on that right path, um, I leave it. And I don't fully disconnect, right? Especially people that I grew up with or my family, but I just spend less time with them. And if people don't understand what we're doing, because I think both of our families don't necessarily understand why we work as hard as we do. We have money, we are okay, we're gonna be fine. And I think they both think like, why are you still working? Why are you still working as hard as you are? And we still love them. We still care about them, but we just spend less time with them and more time in the gym here at acquisition.com where we can be around Alex and Layla and the entire team here and that are all way ahead of us and are all going on the same path as us. And the more that you can be around those types of people, the better that you're going to get.
I love it. Jamie, I'd like to tweak the question because, obviously you're extremely, into fitness and, you're a bodybuilder. And how does that discipline, both in your work life, like Ned was just talking about, and personal life, like, well, how is being organized, systematic, very, obsessed, if you will, with planning and focus? What does that look like both in your hobby and what you do personally, as well as in your business?
It's
And how do
like
you balance that?
incredibly transferable, which is awesome. In bodybuilding, you don't have to, right? But if you want to do and you want to win, you've got to be very routine, very regimented. There is a very specific list that you have to check off every day, every single item, regardless if you feel like doing it or not, right? Regardless if you have other things that come up in your life or not. And so it relates so beautifully, I think, to just my professional life and my career. And that there's so many times where it's like, you look at your full inbox or you look at your calendar for the day and you're just like, I just don't have it in me today. It's like, I much rather sleep in today, right? Than have to wake up early to answer emails and to, prepare for calls. But if I want to be successful and if I want to be the best at what I'm doing and if I want to win, right, whether it's in bodybuilding or if it's in my career, there are certain just non-negotiables. And you do just kind of get to the point with bodybuilding, especially where it is, I don't even think about it. It's second nature to me. It's second nature to me to wake up and take my supplements and go do my fasted cardio as much as I want to eat already before anything else. And, those kinds of things, the more and more you do them, the easier it becomes, right? And maybe not easier, but the easier it is to just ignore kind of that human element where you're just like, okay, maybe I just wanted to slack off a little bit today. So it's such a great, I've really been doing this, like, honestly for 4 years now, just like really seriously competing and like very seriously getting into the gym. And I'll say that since then in my professional life too, it's only helped, right? Because it really helps me bring that mindset from bodybuilding into everything else I do. And not even just work, right? And parenting, right? When you do the hard things, the things you don't want to do, right? You think your kid's an angel and then you gotta, take the PS5 away for a day or whatever it is. So and that's because it's like, you've made promises to yourself and to your family that like, if this happens, then I have to do this. And um, so yeah, it's been really helpful.
Yeah. And Gabe says this all the time. Success is boring. Being consistent and mastering the same thing over and over. Do you guys
Totally.
agree with that?
I will say it just in bodybuilding, even I asked my coach a few months back if we needed to update my training because it had been I mean, I've been kind of doing the exact same like program now for about 20 weeks. And he was like, well, why would we update it? And I was like, because we've been doing it for a long time. And he was like, well, do you want to be entertained or do you want to grow? I was like, I want to grow. He's like, then if it's working and it's been working, why would we change it? Right. And so I think that's again something that bodybuilding's really helped me with too in a professional aspect is whatever's working, like don't touch it just for the sake of touching it. Going back to even what we talked about earlier, when we get away from the basics, it's like, if it's working, then leave it alone and just continue to do and continue to work that plan. Right. So that's really kind of my philosophy on it.
Yeah, I'm fully aligned on that. I think too many people try to do new things too often, right? I think that if you want to be, I always say it's like the best in the world. If you want to be the best in the world at something, you have to do it over and over and over and over again. You have to be very, very consistent with it. And too often, I think one of the biggest things that people do is when things get hard, they try to pivot and they go, oh, well, maybe this isn't for me. Or they go, hey, this is, I'm going to go try something else. Or and business owners do it all the time is, oh, shoot, I'm going to go, build this new product instead. And you never get great at one thing if you're not consistent at it. And so I think one of the biggest things that people need to actually start to understand is that in order to do anything meaningful in this life, it doesn't even matter in business, you have to be consistent in everything that you do, and you have to do it at the highest level and at your highest level of ability at that time. I think a lot of times, I get to watch Jamie every single day do this thing, and I love cookies, so I'm never going to be like Jamie. But I get to watch her literally watch me eat cookies and not eat. And so it's like I've been able to see her from the first time she competed all the way to now, and how the highest level of her ability 4 years ago is like the basement now. And the struggles that she went through 4 years ago don't even bother her anymore. And I think the reason is because she was consistent for 4 straight years, and will be consistent for 4 more years and 4 more years. And you will consistently raise the ceiling if you are consistent. The problem is that people change the house that they're living in every time something gets hard, and you have to just stay in that house, and you've got to make it great.
Well, I think that was a great ending point, man. That was awesome. Thank you both. We have a big audience, and you guys are both obviously doing different businesses now. Who out there is the right person that you would want to reach out to you? And what would be the best way for them to connect? Ned, I'll start with you, and then James.
I'm only on LinkedIn, so that's where people can find me. And maybe I won't be for much longer, but I'm still there. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm probably the only Ned Arick that exists. But honestly, anyone can reach out. I think one thing that I will say is, like, if I don't get right back to you and it's like a genuine question, it just means that it got lost. Hit me back up. I'm not that busy. I'm not a bit too busy to be in my LinkedIn inbox and reply back. I will request like no sales pitches though, because I won't get back to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ned and Jamie. Who's the right
Killing
person
us,
to reach
Ned.
out?
Nobody can sell you in your inbox. One of them. Yeah. So again, you can find me on LinkedIn too. And like Ned, really anybody who wants to connect, I'm happy to connect with. Right now, really would love to grow my network in terms of female founders, female CEOs, really any kind of like executive level female or women-owned businesses. Really interested in just connecting more with just like-minded women. So if that's you, send me a connection request.
Awesome. And here's my last question for both of you. Content. You're here right now. You're running businesses. You're scaling organizations. You have a family. You are obsessed with growth, but you're on a podcast. And why is that important, right? You guys post amazing content. We follow your journey. We're big fans of what you're posting. But is content really that important at the top when it comes to this day and age?
Yeah, I think so. I think your personal brand really speaks volumes just about who you are. Obviously, that goes without saying, but I just think like who you are in an organization too. And I think it's really easy for people to just kind of hide behind their inboxes and their emails. And something that Ned's always said, and he's always kind of preaching to me about is like, hey Jimmy, like you need to like put your personality out there more. Like people don't know who you are. And so I think that's something that personally, it is sort of a goal this year for me is to continue to grow just in my personal brand, and to continue to engage like this, because this is typically not something that I'm as comfortable and confident in as Ned is, but I think that it really just sets you apart, especially like we talked about in today's day and age, where especially if you are in sales or you have something to sell and you're trying to get somebody's attention, the more you can, humanize yourself literally, I think the better chances you have at making better connections. People want to know you. They don't want to know the LinkedIn version of you. They don't want to know like the super polished, like perfect version of you. That's not to say go tell everybody all your deepest, darkest secrets and unload on.
Yeah, you needed to say that. Some of this
Yeah.
LinkedIn content's wild, bro. I'm like, you
Occasionally,
gotta
people don't
chill.
get that memo on LinkedIn, but yeah, I think it's really important for people to see kind of the holistic whole view of someone, not just a random post now and then that they'll fire off on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and super ditto. I think even in the age of AI, brand is still a moat, right? The average, when I think about content as a whole, whether it be company content or I think about it from a personal brand, people like as cliche as it is, they buy from people they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to change in the age of AI. I see a lot of people that are on LinkedIn right now that have been looking for jobs for a long time, and I feel for them, right? But a personal brand probably would have helped a lot in that. I look at companies that can't find leads because they can't stand out amongst their competition. A brand really helps there. And so I think brand is still absolutely a moat, even though, the true moat these days is definitely going to be data. Content and being content forward is always going to be helpful. I mean, I work at acquisition.com. Alex and Layla and Sharon, I mean, I think they have like 21 million followers combined between the three of them. What that means for us is that we literally have leads that come in every single day without us trying. And so I think there's a lot to be said around building your personal brand. There's a lot to be said around taking that personal brand and tying it to your business brand and making sure that you can actually stay out front. And if you're not building that, I think it's actually just as bad as the people that are saying AI isn't actually the next big frontier. Like, I think you should be focused on AI and getting exceptional at AI, and you should be focusing on building a brand for yourself and for your organization.
There it is. Thank you so much, team. I appreciate you, Jamie, Ned, and your time. We know how busy you are. We can't wait to get this out to our audience. For all of those listening, keep doing hard things, keep being boring, keep being consistent, build on your brand, focus on AI, and keep doing the hard things. And Lexi and I will see you on the next one. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Ned.
Thanks, y'all.